Come on in. You are very tall.
Yes, I am.
Have you ever wondered, am I the asshole? Welcome to Who's the Asshole, a Grindr podcast where we're not only talking, we're getting into it. I'm your host, Katya, and I'm here to probe into your juiciest, messiest stories. So bend over, ladies, because I want to see the receipts. Who's the asshole? Today's guest is the author of the critically acclaimed book, Boy, a memoir and manifesto. He writes Sexplain It, the sex and relationship advice column at Men's Health, and the polyamory column at Cosmo. Recently, he also became Grindr's first ever sex and relationship expert. He is the Carrie Bradshaw of the queers, but like Samantha, please welcome Zach Zane.
Ooh, I love that introduction.
Well, welcome.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I'm excited to talk to you about everything sexual, and I am in need of a sexpert, so this is really good for me.
Good, I'm glad.
Let's see. Oh my God. Do you know what the first question is?
Let's hear it.
Would you rather Ken or Barbie?
Well, neither of them have genitals, so that would make it a little bit challenging.
Well, let's say from the movie, and we'll give them genitals.
Ooh, I mean, I feel like Ken gives me that like young, dumb, hard himbo energy.
Yeah.
Where I could just be a pillow princess.
A pillow princess.
And he would just me down.
Down the pillow princess.
And I don't have to do so I love that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fierce. Let's see. So how do you become a sexpert?
I just started writing about bisexuality, specifically like male bisexuality, at a time when very few people were. So this is maybe I started writing about this like a decade ago. Okay. And at the time, when I started writing about it, it was always articles to like convince like monosexuals is the word that's called, but like gay or straight people that like bi people exist.
That it's real.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there was no content for actually like bisexual people. Like how do we date as a bi person? How do you deal with internalized biphobia? Yeah. There are higher rates of like depression, anxiety, suicide, interpartner like violence than gay people, which is significantly higher than straight people. So I became the bi guy. Like I was the one who really was writing about the bisexual male experience. And one thing I learned very quickly is I am not unique or special. In a way that like if I experience something, that means a gajillion other people are experiencing it as well. And then through just writing more and more, reading, talking to people, I became this expert, and that's where I am now.
How, I'm assuming perhaps that you've had a lot of sex.
I have. I've had a fair amount of sex. I was trying to think before coming on the show, like how many guys from Grindr have I in the past 10 years, just from Grindr alone, like well over 1,000. Like well over 1,000. But like it could be like 2,500. Like it really could be anywhere in between. Because there was a time, especially, I've been working from home like way before COVID.
Okay.
So like for my lunch break, I would hop on Grindr, someone would come over, and instead of watching, an episode of Friends or TV for a half an hour, my lunch break was me someone, and I did that like every day.
Oh my God. What has been your fastest,
4 minutes.
4 minutes.
I bet you someone has probably been in, I've been in and out of apartments within like 4 minutes flat, where you go in, especially if they're face down up. So like, it's literally you go in and I'm wearing joggers, no underwear. Like I'm really trying to make this as efficient as possible.
Just bam, bam.
Yeah.
Okay, so well over 1,000. Jesus Christ. I mean, that's in what, the span of 10 years you said?
Yeah, let's see. I started hooking up with dudes at 18, but it didn't come out as bi until like 5 years later, and I was doing it like blackout in order to hook up with a dude. I had so much shame.
Really?
The first hookup I had, this guy was me, and I left to go vomit twice in the middle of it. And he was like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "It's fine, just keep doing this. I need to have this experience. It's important for me to have it." And so I was hooking up with guys like blackout for probably 5 years. Until I got into therapy, and that's a different story too, but he helped me embrace being bi. Then I got on Grindr, so it's been about a decade.
Wow. I honestly still encounter that weird old myth that like all bi girls are on their way to be, they're just experimenting, and all bi guys are on their way to be gay. I feel like it's insane, but it does still persist. Like
harder for the people who are like newly out as bi, because that's when they're like, oh, we don't believe you. You're using this as a stepping stone. Because often they want to argue with these people. And I'm like, if you start the argument, you've already lost.
Yes.
Like, the most powerful thing you can do when someone is intent on misunderstanding you or looking for a fight is just saying, okay, oh, I don't believe bisexuality is real in men. Okay.
Okay.
And they look at you, they're expecting you to want to defend and to like have this argument. And when you're like, I'm so secure in my identity that I don't need you, a random stranger, to validate me.
Right.
I still know I'm bisexual. I'm not engaging with this. You're actually more likely to change that dude's mind. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So now I want to play a little game with you. It's called Hole or Not. Basically, I'm going to name some behaviors and you're going to determine whether or not holy thing to do or not.
Okay.
So here we go. Shaming someone playfully or not.
Oof. I'm going to incline to say for the reason of, is it actually playful? I feel like all too often people like, oh, this is playful, but it's coming from a place of insecurity and religious shame. And then they're projecting that onto you in the like form of a joke.
Yeah.
But even if it is playful, you have to know your audience. If you're playful with me, okay, I'm secure, I'm confident. If this is a new friend who's entering his era, he's anxious and nervous about it, and you're shaming him playfully, he can't hear it at that point.
Yeah.
So like, I'm inclined to just say
Yeah, I think it's holy. Okay, what about hosting a hookup but not cleaning up your room beforehand?
Not but there's a difference between messy and dirty.
Yes.
Like, messy's fine, like just have piles of clothes elsewhere. If it's like dirty to the point that I want to be able to focus on the hookup. If it's distracting, then yes, you're
Yeah, like if you're having sex on the bed and you don't make the bed, I feel like, I don't know.
Also, I just kind of want, like, I know you were messaging 50 other guys on Grindr and I happen to be the one to come over, but still I want to feel slightly special.
Yes.
You put in a little bit of effort just to clean your room for me to come over.
Yeah, and you want an embroidered pillow that says Zach on it.
Exactly. Yeah, every time. Yeah.
How about calling an Uber for your hookup while they're still in bed?
If someone did that to me, I think I would cry. Like, I honestly think I'd be so upset.
Imagine if like they know they're in like a remote part of town, so they call it mid-coitus because they know it's going to take like 15 minutes.
Oh,
that would be wild.
You did the Uber like wait and save. Yeah.
How about hosting and not having any lube in the house?
Yeah, you're cool. Like, especially if
on the menu.
On the menu. And that's funny because, A, this is nothing about, a bottom would never do this. They'd always have lube. It's always the top who's probably inviting someone over and doesn't have lube. And it's like, come on, dude.
It's terrible. Okay, asshole or not, telling your partner that they're too loud during sex.
Again, I kind of need context. Like, if you're at Thanksgiving with your family and you're like in that your childhood room and the whole family's there, it's like, yeah, don't be too loud. But if you're just having like regular sex and there's like no...
Would it be a deal breaker or would it be a turnoff if you were this super masculine hunky guy and he's like oh,
I love that. Okay. I love that. No, I love any form. Like, I love highly masculine, I love highly feminine, and I love androgyny. I love a blend of it.
Fierce.
I'm one of those people who's like bi not because, oh, I don't have a preference and I see the beauty in everyone. It's like, no, I don't see the beauty in everyone. There are a lot of ugly people. No, but like for me, it's like, no, it's an actual attraction. Yeah. So I find like androgyny or just gender nonconformity or things you wouldn't expect to be really hot. Yeah. There's nothing like like a muscle daddy, a power bottom, and like turning him into a little like that's really hot.
Would you laugh?
Oh God. First of all, I love laughing during sex.
Me too.
It is, people take it way too seriously. Yeah. And especially when like I'm doing more like intense, even like BDSM scenes, that's especially when I'm laughing the most. Wow. Like I need to be laughing and having fun. Sex is supposed to be fun.
Yeah, pleasure and fun are very close neighbors. Yes. Actually, they live together.
Yes, they do. Yeah, they do.
Or not, faking enthusiasm for your partner's preferred.
Okay. So, God, I feel so...
Faking it, like saying like, oh yeah, I'm into that, absolutely, like, and you're not, you know?
There's something to be said about being open to new things and wanting to make your partner happy. If you're really, like, if your partner has like and scat and you're like, yes, on me, like, I'd be like, this is not good for you, this is not good for them. But there is something to be said where if you're kind of indifferent towards it, potentially being gung-ho about it and getting them excited for it. I think an example is, I feel like all my partners are into play.
Okay.
Like, obsessed with it.
I think you just read my mind.
It's, yeah.
Because
Like,
I was just thinking about.
but I'm always think it's probably better to just say, hey, it's something that doesn't necessarily do it for me, but I'd be really excited to try it with you.
If you
just
love it,
frame
then
like
let's
that.
do it. Yeah. Oh, or not pretending to be adventurous in the bedroom.
Does that mean when you actually get to the bedroom, you're not then? Or
I suppose. I mean, I think pretending and faking pretending is just off the table, right?
it's just
no more.
Don't do it. Like it doesn't actually give you the desired outcome that you think you do. Like if pretending actually like worked in some way where it's like
fake it till you make it.
Yeah. But I feel like as a rule of thumb, you should be honest.
Yeah.
Just be kind when you are.
What about responding or not responding to the first "I love you" with silence?
Oh God.
What about silence in like unwavering eye contact?
The thing is, silence is a response. You know what I mean? No response is a response.
Sometimes nothing is the loudest word.
It is the loudest word. And if this person doesn't love you, I think you're an asshole if you say I love you back and you don't love them.
But yeah, what about thank you?
I think I maybe have said that before.
You're like, really?
Not like thank you and that's it. I think I've said when I have not loved the other person back, I think I've said I appreciate you sharing. But there's nothing but like there's no good response to this. If someone loves you and you don't, like.
Well, here's a twist though. I think there's a Buddhist loophole. Okay. Where I love everybody, but I don't like everybody.
Oh,
so I like you
that.
is actually more valuable and meaningful than I love you, because I could pass a lie detector test saying I love you because I respect you as a human being, therefore I love you. But I like you a lot, I think is more like, do you know what I mean?
No, yeah.
So I think I could get away with that. But I think it maybe confused the person.
I love you too, but not like that. But I don't like you, but I do love you.
I love you too, like a Buddhist. Yeah. What about, or not, sharing a spicy hookup story from your past with your current partner.
Oh, no, not an if they want to hear it. You know what I mean? This is one of those things where you gauge, do you want to hear the story? I feel like half of people would be like, absolutely not. The other half are kind of fascinated, intrigued.
Yeah. Do you have any advice on how to like elegantly shut down a hookup that has just gone south?
So you're in like the middle of a hookup?
It's like, you're like, you're in the middle of the sex game and it is just like, you're like, God, I just not feeling it anymore.
There's no world in which it's kind of not slightly awkward, I feel like, or most of the time it is. And that's okay. I think once you acknowledge that, as opposed to, it's so much better to experience some slight awkwardness than to go along with a hookup you don't want to. But being like, hey, can we just take a pause for a second? I just need a little bit of a break. Yeah. And then when that happens, okay, you both pause. And then from there, once the break happens, it's easier to kind of potentially end the hookup. But you're not initially saying, hey, I need to end this now. Hey, let's just take a brief second to pause. I want to grab some water. I want to reset. Yeah. And then it's easier to kind of end it from there.
I think it's hard for people pleasers. Like I would consider myself a people pleaser for most of my life. But now I think like those awkward moments are actually really, not to be corny, like growth producing, like learning to like say something that doesn't feel comfortable, but like telling the truth is like very valuable.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think I've been like, I think I'm going to go home. Yeah. And it's like weird, but I want to go home. Yeah. So I do. It's like, it's so,
But it's still hard.
It's hard though.
One thing I struggle with is when you have someone on Grindr come over and the photo was clearly from 15 years ago.
What do you do?
And
do you
they look, or it's not them. And it's like, also I just kind of want to say like the that they have to do that. No. I'm like, this photo clearly isn't you and you're here.
What do they think? That you're going to be like, oh, well, you traveled all this way, so I must you. You crossed the threshold like a vampire, so I have to you.
I bet you the vast majority of the time that is what happens.
I have done it. And it's insane.
I still struggle with it. There've been times when I'm like, ugh, he's here,
you ordered
whatever.
Steak and shrimp cocktail comes.
Yeah, it really is wild because, but yeah, they're getting away with it because otherwise they would stop doing this. Most people don't call them out and they just have a really awkward hookup.
So incredibly, I feel like it's diabolical. Also, it is so mind-boggling that in this day and age on Grindr, you still have to say, please, no faceless profiles.
Yeah.
Because if you have no photos and no information, you're a ghost. You're a turkey. You're an owl. I don't know. Like, you know what I mean?
It could be anything. And I understand if you don't necessarily want to have your face in the profile. Okay, the first thing you do
picture.
is send the photo.
Yeah.
That's it. Don't make me ask. Don't make me ask.
It's diabolical.
Yeah.
I don't understand how it still happens. And I understand discreet. I understand DL. I understand
of course.
Not out of the closet, whatever. And respect any, But like, what do you expect? I just don't understand it. It happens all the time.
It's like
so weird.
Part of me, I'm like, are they just really leaning on or knowing that some guys are going to be into the anonymity and that's what it is? But it's just like, it just seems so the opposite of self-serving. You know what I mean? Like, you are not going to get the desired outcome by doing this.
Don't do it. Please. Stop doing it to me anyways. Okay, it's time for some user stories. We have a hotline. So let's listen to our first voicemail on the Grindr hotline.
Okay, I'm wondering if I'm the This guy and I matched on a dating site, and we chatted for a few days, and it got to the point in the conversation where he asked if he could get some, and I was like, sure. When he finally got to my place after waiting, I waited about 2 hours. I found out he was sick. He was sneezing. It was disgusting. And I had like this neti pot that I put some salt in and, warmed some water, and it helped him clear out his system. And, we were just kind of hanging out here. And then let me stop this recording. Anyways, what am I doing? Stop.
I'm so interested. Then what happened?
And then he made chicken soup for the person. He gave him a warm bath, took his temperature, let him sleep for about a couple days. What the absolutely asshole.
Yeah. Well, no, he's not
the guy.
The other guy's
you don't show up to work sick. You're not going to show up to a hookup with
it's the fact that it's so bad that you have to bring out a neti pot for this person, and then that person would be like, yes, let's make out afterwards. Or I bet you he was probably like, yeah, well, my isn't sick. You could still I'm like, oh, get the out of here.
That is so wild.
It's first of all, if you don't want to hook up with anyone for any reason, you don't have to. You can stop at any point.
Yes.
But this is such a clear reason where it's the guy who called in is not the other guy 100% is.
Yeah.
And I think he realized it midway through saying it out loud, being like, all right, wait a minute. I'm embarrassed now. I'm definitely not never mind.
I
Sorry.
shouldn't have made this phone call. But yeah. I mean, it's kind of outrageous. I recently had a bad cold, and sex was the last thing on my mind.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not looking for jobs when I'm blowing my nose every 12 seconds.
They have to lean into, I feel medical role play where it's he's the sexy nurse coming bringing you chicken soup.
Yeah,
and
just
then,
wait right
then
there. The doctor will see you and you go grab your lab coat.
Yeah.
Totally. Oh my God, that was hysterical. Okay, our next little segment is called Are We Assholes? We're going to figure out if we have ever been the
Oh, okay.
All right. So I am assuming you're on the grid. You're on Grindr.
Yes, I am.
Okay. Can you tell me about one of the best Grindr experiences you've had?
Ooh, okay. One of my best Grindr experiences is, I feel when I used it for a missed connection. So I was at the gym and making eye contact with this guy who was beat for the gods, had I learned later was a makeup artist, but
full face at the gym.
Yeah, full face at the gym,
Wow.
Barbie aesthetic of pink mascara,
What was the outfit?
and then these little shorts you had ever seen, these booty shorts.
I think I know this person.
While he was squatting, we made such aggressive eye contact, eye me, heavy cruising, essentially this. And I was younger, and so I'm talking to myself and building up the courage to say something because I don't want to be nice form. What do you say? I went to the bathroom, I splashed water on my face. I was getting ready to do this, and he had left.
Oh.
And I was and then so I hop on Grindr, see if I missed him. I was able to tell who he was by his photo, from that. And we ended up dating for about a year after
Shut
that.
the up.
Casually for maybe 3 times.
I am so pleased to hear that. I actually think that it's having sex first is a great thing.
Yeah.
And then sussing out sexual compatibility right off the bat, and then like seeing maybe, oh, do we share any interests? Are we like compatible? I feel like that's a more, to me anyways, like a logical route to a relationship.
I'm that way, for sure. I would like to know kind of right off the bat. I kind of get excited through sex, and I kind of increases this like attraction, and then actually saying, okay, do we get along?
How do you define intimacy?
Ooh, that is a great question. I'm trying to think. I think it's a level of openness and vulnerability and genuine connection where you're connecting in a real way. You're connecting on seeing who this person actually is. And I think that's what intimacy is, because we connect with people in superficial ways. We connect in various other ways as well. But this deep, emotional, real connection.
I'm the weird person who like looks you in the eye like a little too hard, and like I could fall in love with somebody in 10 minutes.
Yes.
Do you think that's bad?
No. No, I don't think that's bad. I think you might run into a challenge of how do I sustain this intimacy?
Well, it only lasts 3 days. Is
exactly.
The problem. Yeah.
Right. So that's one of those things where sometimes I'm not sure if that's like intimacy.
What
you know
would
what
you
I mean?
call it?
There's a word called limerence.
I've never heard of that.
It's kind of in between intimacy and an obsession, love, infatuation.
I was going to say bug-eyed weirdo.
Yeah,
that's
it's something
me.
in between that they talk about a lot. But for me, I know one thing I struggled with was it was always easy for me to have anonymous sex or sex with someone who I don't know, sex with someone who I can't. I'm not afraid of them hurting me, essentially, because this is an anonymous person. I don't care what their thoughts of me. I can't get hurt. Yeah. But actually having sex with the person I love was challenging for me. And, you know, this is due to trauma. You know what I mean? This is due to childhood trauma and various things. So that's the thing that I'm kind of working on right now, where it's like I've been in a relationship for over a year and figuring out the ways of learning to be vulnerable and sexually intimate with someone who can break my heart. Yeah. And that's really challenging.
Something that really bothers me is if a relationship ends badly or there's like a tumultuous breakup, then it kind of casts a whole shadow over the whole thing. Like it was a failure. Like we didn't stay together. Like I think there's no virtue in staying together just for the sake of it. You know what I mean? Like
that's one thing that really polyamory helped me unpack, where you assume longevity is the metric of success.
In marriage,
and it has to be unless if you both die, at which point you have failed. And I look back at so many of my relationships that have been 6 months, a year and a half, and I look back on them so fondly, and I don't see them as failures. I see them as success.
I'm going to say it. I hate marriage.
Yeah.
I just think it's like such a weird thing. I don't like it. I'm never going to do it.
I don't hate marriage, and I aspire to marriage. I would like to get married, and I think people are surprised when it's like, oh, you're the boy and you want to get married. And it's like, yeah, the idea of sharing your life with someone and being invested in this and wanting to do this long term, for me, is very beautiful. Yeah. I think marriage, when it becomes this conscious choice, I'm obviously much more of a supporter of it. If you're doing it just because you feel like you should, and if not, you have failed, and all of the,
or you're trying to secure a royal dynasty or something.
Yeah, and it's like, one thing now where I think about my current partner, and it's like we've spoken about marriage, and the reason why we haven't gotten engaged just yet is because I was like, I want to marry you not because I'm doing this because I'm afraid of losing you, and I want this kind of like safety net or this false sense of security that comes with marriage.
Sure thing, yeah.
I want to do this because I want to spend the rest of my life with you, which I do want to do, but I feel like a lot of the motivators right now, as we're working through some stuff together, is a little bit of like my anxiety, and I want to have the safety net. I'm like, that's not the reason why I want to get married.
I can see why you're a sexpert. This is very illuminating and fabulous. How many times have you been in love?
Love is, I have definitely loved people, but I'm in this new partnership that's been, I guess we've been like official, whatever that means when you're in an open relationship, but like for over a year, and this one feels different.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But I'd say I've been in love a few times, like truly in love. But like, and I think about like the love I had when I was 16, and that like, you're not afraid of heartbreak. You're not afraid of this happening before you were jaded, before you close yourself off. Yeah. And then I did love a few people in college, and I felt very out of control. I felt obsessive. I also grew up with terrible OCD, so it exacerbated my OCD. And love became a thing that like, oh, this feels unsafe. I lose in mind. I used non-monogamy for a while as a way to enable my avoidance.
Oh, okay.
So, and obviously that's not what non-monogamy is about, but I was using it kind of incorrectly, where I'd have this primary partnership. If things got hard, I'd invest in trying to find a new partner and kind of always looking for the next instead of kind of watering my own lawn here and allowing that grow. When things got tough, I would kind of break up with this person, move to the next person, and kind of keep hopping through. And I kind of realized, hey, this is not how you cultivate intimacy. I'm really not building the foundation of a real relationship. And so I'm doing it with this current partner. And it's why with this partner, we're open, but we're not poly. And
okay. So what is...
So the difference here is poly is you're open to having many loves. So it's like you could have a boyfriend, a wife, a girlfriend, a they friend, multiple serious romantic partnerships.
Who's got the time?
So the people who do it successfully, and if you look at the research, are often people who are retired. So they literally do have the time, and they've had 20 years of monogamy under their belt. They know each other inside and out. They're not dealing with jealousy.
Yeah.
And that's when you often see successful open relationships or poly relationships as people get older.
Free and wise.
Free and wise.
Yeah. Tell us about your worst breakup, if you can.
Oh,
Has there been a really bad one?
I've had a few really bad ones.
Like furniture out the window bad?
No, not furniture out the window bad, but like one person who essentially, you know how you talk to your partner about everyone, not you, sorry,
I've never
not you.
done that, no.
And they went ahead and started to everything I kind of told them in confidence. They then went to kind of get all these friends against me. And luckily, my friends were like, oh yeah, Zach says that to my face. So it wasn't like stuff that I was saying behind their back. And they went on this whole campaign to try to get everyone to hate me, to get me canceled. Like 6 months later, I got a text out of the blue being like, I'm really sorry. I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I was not in a good headspace. I was heartbroken. I was like, hey, I appreciate you reaching out. Like, I'm not looking to be friends anymore. You know what I mean? I wish you no ill will, and thank you for doing this, but you did make my life pretty hellish for a few months.
Thank you, psycho.
Yeah.
And please move on.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you think is the most underrated sex toy?
The sex toy I love is when you get a vibrating butt plug that connects to the ring. So it's actually like it's a 2-for-1 deal.
Okay. So
it goes around your so it will go in here, then goes up, and then you put like obviously the ring around the base of your dick.
Okay.
And so you get the vibrations.
Were you locked in a cage for all of Locktober?
I was not. God, I remember when
really disappointing in that.
This dude who came over, I was with my boyfriend at the time, who came over, and it was not Locktober, he was just in a cage, and I had been in it for like 5 months.
Yeah.
Something nuts, to the point where he did not even, I lived in New York, and the person who had the key lived in San Francisco, where I'm like, if there was like an emergency, you're kind of
yeah.
And I went to go him, and it was like throwing a hot dog down a hallway. So immediately I tell my boyfriend, I'm like, hey, we're going to this dude. Do you want to do this? He goes, yes. And then afterwards, like, I didn't like say anything. And he was like, yeah, because I'm so I spend like an hour or two a day just on these huge because I can't and that's the only way I feel like sane. So he had just been stretching his asshole out for like months. Yeah. At that point, the DP was beautiful and was perfect, and we're able to do it. But like, if it was just me, I don't know. Also, like, have you ever like a dude and then you off inside them? It's kind of the same thing where their asshole so makes you them, and then they're not going to feel your. So then you literally go in and then you're like yourself off inside of them while you them.
I only accidentally somebody once, and it was wild. But like. I know it was like it just went up there. I was like, it was incredible. But I've never heard of that, and half of my friends are like huge. So wow.
I remember right when I joined Grindr, because I'd never seen this before, and you kind of are not used to getting a barrage of like nudes if you're not used to this. And this guy sent a photo of him, and he was completely down a traffic cone. Just like had sat on the traffic cone. Absolutely. He's like, come over. And I'm like, you are not going to feel me, my dude. Like, what am I getting out of this? You need a lot more than me. And now I would have, absolutely gone over and just, put my head inside and see what's going on. But like, it's.
Your spelunking helmet.
But it was too adventurous for me at that time versus now. Missed opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, I still find myself in these pearl clutching moments that I'm so embarrassed about. Like, I went into my friend's bathroom who has a collection of toys that I screamed.
Yeah.
Like actually like I saw them because they're enormous.
They're
enormous. I'm so impressed and in awe of like the ability to do that. It's just not something in my wheelhouse, but it's wild.
Yeah.
So you have defined yourself as an ethical man.
Sure.
How do you work to dismantle negative connotations and dangerous stereotypes as a sexually liberated individual?
Ooh, that is like not an easy question to answer, right? I feel like there's a lot of different factors that go into it. But one thing I think is helpful is when we're talking about shame, because I feel like shame is what brings in people shaming. Shame is what brings in these negative stereotypes. And one thing I really work for is how do we overcome, sexual shame that we have that is either based in religion or just based in the fact that you've existed in society for so long.
Yeah.
And it's so insidious, all the small little ways that we are taught to be ashamed of our sexuality.
Well, the naked body is also like a crime.
Yeah.
Which is kind of strange.
And yeah, it is. But so one thing I really try to focus on and I'm working towards in the next chapter of my life is how do we really foster and facilitate community? Because I feel like community is the way to ward off shame. Okay. Where shame exists, thrives, excels when you're isolated, when you feel alone, afraid, scared, like you're the only one in the world who has this.
Right.
And that's the person that's going to end up acting out and hurting other people because they have the shame. One thing I think about is how do we facilitate bisexual community? You know, I feel like it's a lot harder than for gay people. You could just go to a bar, a club. There are more apps for it. For bi people, it's a little bit harder. And that's, one thing I've been thinking about is how do we connect other people so we just feel less alone, less afraid, and loved and affirmed. And I feel like that's how we're going to combat sex negativity and shaming.
There's so much inherited just bull that you have to just slough off and scrape off, and it's so different. Some people never do it their whole lifetime.
It's you don't necessarily have to, but I think because it's a lot of work to do this, and it's a journey to do this, and if you don't have it in you, don't do it. But I feel like you will have a much more rewarding and satisfying and fulfilling life if you are able to kind of shed these negative thoughts here.
There was a time when I was like, having sex is not productive.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, it's like, because I was like so achievement oriented, not now, I'm so lazy now. But I was like, oh, I felt guilty for having a 4-hour session, which I think is absurd because we're just here floating on a rock in outer space. Might as well just have as much pleasure.
I mean, it's showing how the ideas of capitalism are affecting our sex life.
Where it's the Protestant work ethic.
Yeah, it's we have to be working. And luckily, my job is sex. So I get to deduct when I take an Uber over to a Grindr's house. I'm like, oh no, this is a deduction here.
That's amazing.
But no, it's very challenging for a lot of people to be like, I can experience pleasure just for pleasure's sake.
Yeah.
And that is totally allowed and accepted and actually good for my mental health, good for my well-being. But yes, so many of us are goal-oriented or productivity-oriented.
Okay, do you have any advice for Grindr users who are bi-curious?
So I think list that you are bi-curious, that you are new to this. I don't think you want to be in a situation where this guy's expecting to do the wild, craziest and you're just trying to dip your toes in with men. But the thing is, there will be so many guys, gay men and other bi men who will want to help you on this journey.
I would love to.
Who would be turned on by the fact that, oh, you haven't hooked up with many guys. Let me be your teacher.
Are you kidding me? I would be I would have my hand up as the first volunteer to take them through the woods.
Yeah, exactly.
I have a flashlight. I got a map. I think I almost fetishize it to the point I'm
it's interesting.
I love bisexual.
I love hearing that. You know what I mean? And obviously, fetishization's a little bit more complex and not necessarily ideal. But I always talk about this when men fetishize me for being bi, it can sometimes come from a weird place. It's oh, you're more masculine that you women, and I'm that's kind of weird.
There's a residue of a homophobia or self-hating, And I'm like, girl, I can guarantee you I'm not more masculine. That's definitely not a thing.
Yeah. Versus when women do it, it's just oh, I just find two men hooking up so hot. And when I've been rejected by so many women for being bi, the fact that they're embracing me, even if it's slightly fetishizing for this purpose, still feels good. And I'll take the win.
I just watched a lot of where there's men and women.
Yeah.
And that is my favorite type of so I love.
Oh, it's because you're straight. That's what it is.
That's right.
Sorry, that's what it was. Yeah.
Oh my God, I completely forgot.
Yeah.
My girlfriend is waiting for me at home, and she's that I haven't her in 3 months. I do want to just remind you, you should buy his book.
Boys,
Let's see the book.
memoir and manifesto.
Let me see that.
This is your copy. This is for you. I have a paperback as well.
I'll take the
depending on
hardcover.
your,
Thank you very much. Go to wherever you buy your books and buy this. Plus, it's a gorgeous cover.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I love it. I love it.
And writing is so hard. It's so time consuming.
For me, what was challenging with this book is I'm analyzing a lot of my life, and I'm calling my family to also fact check my memory to be like, this is how I remember this. How do you remember this? Yeah. And it was always completely different. I got 6 different stories every time.
Wow.
But what was challenging for me was I've made a lot of mistakes in my past. I've hurt a lot of people in my past, and I'm really now coming to grips with it as I'm talking about the ways that I've accidentally hurt people.
Were you nervous about being like letting everything, letting it all hang out, so to speak?
Oh, absolutely. And it's kind of like I talk about some of my more disgusting in the book, and it's like, oh, that is there. That is there for every single person to always read.
And it's in print, and it will be in print forever.
It's in print forever. And I think what's been also challenging is this book was a lot about my 20s. It's about how to overcome sexual shame. Of course, I write through my lens, which is bi-positive or bisexual positive, sex positive. But I've also somewhat grown from this. Okay. So I'm kind of doing promotion for this book, talking about this book, but I'm a little bit of a different person than I am now. So if you've read this book, you know me at 29-year-old Zach. You don't know mid-30s Zach.
Will there be another book for? Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is, you can't have a memoir, unless if you're David Sedaris, who I feel like can come out with a collection of essays every 25 minutes.
I know.
The rest of us.
It's like 14 memoirs.
It's something insane. The rest of us, I can't have a memoir every year.
No.
So
I know
this is going to take some time.
Yeah. And also, if you have a podcast, I mean, I've literally, I am absolutely, I retell stories so many times. Yeah. It's like, I have no more life to, I've talked about everything. And it's like, I have to go out and live more life to come up with some, more insights. It's actually quite pathetic. But.
No, that's exactly where I am. Where the first book, it's about how to overcome sexual shame. Yeah. This next book is about how to cultivate intimacy. How do you have a real long-term relationship, be in love, without losing your mind? Because love, for me, it's horrifying. It's scary. We all have this trauma that we need to work through, and actually having this connection and being vulnerable and not letting your insecurities get the best of you, not being defensive when your partner says you do something wrong. How I'm now currently kind of living out that journey with my partner. And whereas the first book, I was definitely the sex expert, this next book is more, I'm stumbling along here. Okay. I'm doing the best that I can. Here's what I've learned through someone who has to read a sex and relation book for work every single month, who's been in therapy for 20 years. I feel like I haven't quite lived enough to write this next book just yet.
Zach, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Where can people find you online?
Oh, sure.
Where can the children find you online?
Love that. So Instagram is always good, Zachary Zane _. Okay. I have a Substack, which is...
Oh, yeah. I know about Substack.
So it's nonfiction erotica. So real things have happened. And it's not just me. I have a slew of writers. You can also submit to the publication so you actually get paid for your work.
Get out of here.
That has been such a fun thing to do, to write down my wild, crazy, raunchy sex stories.
Love that.
And it's not just smut. There's always something like, I learned something about myself through the sexual experience, or it speaks to something like the intersection of sex and tech or sex and modern dating. So there's always something slightly larger. It's raunchy, it's graphic.
Nice.
But if you Google boy one word, because Amazon would have dinged me if it was 2 different words, because it's a curse word and then I wouldn't have shown up. So boy, one word, that's the name of my Substack as well, which is either great marketing and branding or very confusing. But it's also the name of my book. But if you Google Zachary Zane, I come up. But Instagram's probably the best.
Awesome. So buy the book, read the Substack, follow on Instagram.
Yes.
And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun.
It was riveting and illuminating, and I feel like more evolved.
Oh my God, thank you.